Great days start with great underwear. So if you're looking for something special, give Tommy John and gift a better day. Everything we make is meticulously crafted from breathable stretch fabric for the perfect fit, including our sleepwear for him and her. It feels good to give, but it feels great to give Tommy John. Find something for everyone and pick up something for yourself, because at Tommy John, greatness is in our very fabric. Shop TommyJohn.com/Spotify right now and save 30% site-wide. TommyJohn.com/Spotify. See site for details.
Where faith matters. The Rev and the Rabbi. Talk Radio 77 WABC.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Patterson.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
Reverend, do you know who we have on the line today? Two formers. A former congressperson, a former governor, which means they're unemployed right now. But, you know, they're talking about Congressman Peter King, America's congressman. Former Governor David.
How are you guys doing?
Great. Former Governor David Patterson. Sounds like in this corner we got in this corner we got two. I got to tell you, before the congressman starts talking about his heroism in Israel, Governor Patterson and I traveled with him, missiles flying overhead, and I got to commend both of them. Came to a dangerous time, and the congressman who always complains he's got a bad leg, a bad knee. I never saw anyone run so fast. Into the shelter. And he left the governor and me out there. Right, Governor?
Yes, it was like watching Bob Hayes.
Yeah.
I'm glad everyone's old enough to remember his name.
Congressman, I know that was planned in advance. You had already told them what you were going to do, so I'm on your side. Congressman, absolutely.
Anyway, I must tell you this. Here there are two people who come from different parties and brought a lot of love to the people of Israel during a difficult time. There have been many difficult times, but when they saw the Republican and Democrat coming together and not just visiting, but spending time talking to people, and a lot of people knew them. They're beloved in the state of Israel. I don't know about the state of New York, but in Israel, they were beloved, and I just want to commend you both for being there during a difficult time. So here we have, again, people from two different parties. You don't see this anymore. When's the last time you saw a Republican and Democrat working together on something meaningful? Does that ever happen?
It used to happen a lot more often. You just here in New York, back to the days of Al D'Amato and Pat Moynihan. Disagreed on a lot of issues, but always worked together. It was common, even Governor Kerry and Republicans, when you agreed on an issue to appear, try to work things out. Now, even if you agree with someone and you get caught in a photo with them, people in your party think you're a traitor. If you're Republican, you're a rhino. If you're a Democrat, you're just a traitor to your party. So it's unfortunate. I mean, you can't overcome it, don't get me wrong, but it's more difficult than it used to be.
Well, I didn't know. They have a rhino and they have a dino now?
Governor, when you worked with Republicans, weren't you, when you were governor?
Well, when I became governor, the Republican majority leader of the Senate was Joe Bruno, and I had been, at a different time, minority leader under him. And I did a lot of things that I think he always appreciated to try to keep us on the same page and, not having, petty arguments and that kind of thing. But when I became governor, he really, really helped me. And I just never forgot it. The only thing he did that I thought was a little interesting was July 4th weekend. He said, "What are you doing for July 4th?" I said, this is my first weekend, as governor, a holiday weekend. All my family's coming. And he said, "Well, bring them over my house." I said, "Why do you want me to do that?" He says, "Because I have two brothers who haven't spoken to each other in 20 years, but they both agreed to come if you will take pictures with them."
Reconciliation, that works. But
we probably had the most even number of Republicans and Democrats at one event in the state's history.
But isn't that unique to New York? Aren't we, or should I say we tend to be more collaborative? We engage in partnerships and working together. Is that something that's unique to New York politics?
Well, I can speak for Congress. The congressional delegation in New York, not so much in recent years, but certainly for the first 20 years or so that I was there. I know you have guys like Charlie Rangel, a lot of credit for this, Ben Gilman. Mm-hmm. We used to meet weekly, maybe get bi-weekly, the entire New York delegation, finding areas we could agree on so we could be a united force. Because the rest of the country, I mean, the rule of thumb is Democrats don't worry about New York because they take it for granted. Republicans don't care about New York because they feel they can't win it anyway. So it's important that those of us in the state and both parties stick together. In California, I understand they never met. The two parties had no contact at all. But in New York, we, again, Ben Gilman and Charlie, I give them most of the credit. They would assemble everybody. And I would say 90% of the members of Congress would appear for all these lunches and dinners, and we worked an awful lot out.
Yeah. Now, today in the Assembly of the Senate, if a Democrat introduces a bill, will Republicans vote for it?
Well, the Democrats have almost veto-proof majorities. I think they actually don't have the veto-proof majority anymore. But for the last few years, it didn't matter what the Republicans did, the bills would pass. And even though I'm a Democrat and a lot of those bills I supported, just the idea that there was that wide a margin was difficult. We were in the minority. We had 24 members and Republicans had 38 when I became the minority leader. And we were able to make up the difference. And maybe the pendulum is now swinging back the other way because in the last election, I'm pretty sure that in the Senate, the veto-proof majority isn't there anymore.
So I think you guys are down by one vote as far as the veto-proof. That's what I've been told, yeah.
So let me stir the pot, guys, because to have the two of you together on the show like this is just an opportunity. Post-election, the world didn't collapse. It wasn't the end of the world. We're still here. President Trump won by a very decisive margin in terms of both the popular vote and the Electoral College. And here we are, the next 4 years. And we've got to make our adjustments and whatnot. What's your commentary on the direction of the nation now? Because the nation has spoken. The nation has spoken. Regardless of disappointments or celebration, the nation has spoken in a very strong and definitive way.
Well, something has come up, Reverend, a few times. The elected officials in California saying that they're going to keep all of the sanctuary areas the way they are, almost daring the federal government to come in. Some mayor in Colorado dared them to come in. And I hearken back to the days of George Wallace standing in front of schools saying that they won't be desegregated. Now, the elected officials of today and George Wallace wouldn't have the same point of view, clearly. But they do share the same ignorance of what our country is really about and what sets us apart, or at least has set us apart for all these years from the rest of the world, that the majority will rule. The people who are put in office can exercise power under the Constitution to whatever limit it is. And the fact that anyone's even getting up and saying this right now is just hurting the whole idea that maybe after an election we could all get together and work together. Now, people are threatening other government agencies and even the president who don't have the slightest bit of legal right to do that.
Do you think people want compromise? You always represent your constituents. Do you think they want it or they want combat? Congressman?
Yeah, I would say that, unfortunately, the bases of both parties somehow want combat. They want confrontation. But I also believe that, and I'm calling on President Trump, if he could do this, find a way to find some common ground. And as David said, it's wrong for these mayors and governors to say basically they're going to defy the federal government over something that is clearly a federal prerogative and a federal issue. I think it's important for Republicans, if that does happen, not to overplay their hand, but to somehow do it, carry out the orders or carry out the policy in a way that shows a certain degree of concern. I'm not saying we have to have a feel-good policy, but don't exacerbate what's already a bad situation. Be firm, be forceful if you have to be, but don't make it any worse than you have to. And that's one way to bring people around. But we're at the stage right now. Listen, I would say in fairness, I had Republicans say if Donald Trump loses, I'm leaving the country. Then you see Democrats saying that they are going to leave the country. And to me, the country is, the fact that we're so closely divided means no one should have a veto power over the other.
Mm-hmm.
But this was a clear-cut election. People had seen President Trump for 4 years. He lost. He's back again. So they know what they voted for.
Right.
And as much as many Democrats maybe totally despise that, that's the reality. And I think both sides should realize how the other feels when they lose and when they win. If you have a hard-fought election like this and it's a clear winner, I think it's everyone's obligation to try to work with that person. And certainly don't provoke needless confrontation.
From your perspectives, why do you think the Democrats lost? Governor and Congressman?
I thought that one of the major issues that caused the Democrats to lose was 2 straight months of commercials put out by President-elect Trump now regarding the issues involving transgendered people. And whatever you think about the issue or don't, it was done in a way that was almost challenging the Democrats to get into that discussion. And not one dime was spent by the Democratic Party trying to clear the record from what the Republicans were campaigning against.
Eden Memorial Chapels understands Jewish funerals can take many forms. Some are Orthodox, while others are more conservative or of a Reformed nature. There's no one better. With services close to all New York and New Jersey cemeteries, Eden Memorial Chapels offer fair and balanced pricing and can provide easy transfer of you and your loved ones to Israel. While you're grieving, they're here to take care of all the details so that you deal with less bureaucracy and have more peace of mind. Go to EdenMemorial.com. That's EdenMemorial.com.
Great days start with great underwear. So if you're looking for something special, give Tommy John and gift a better day. Everything we make is meticulously crafted from breathable stretch fabric for the perfect fit, including our sleepwear for him and her. It feels good to give, but it feels great to give Tommy John. Find something for everyone and pick up something for yourself. Because at Tommy John, greatness is in our very fabric. Shop TommyJohn.com/Spotify right now and save 30% site-wide. TommyJohn.com/Spotify. See site for details.
This episode is brought to you by Etsy.
Oh.
Hear that?
Okay. Thank you.
Etsy knows these aren't the sounds of holiday gifting. Well, not the ones you're hoping for. You want squeals of delight. Happy tears.
How did you?
And spontaneously written songs of joy.
I am so happy. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, the song needs a bit of work, but anyway, to get those reactions, make sure everyone on your list feels heard with handmade, handpicked, and designed gifts from small shops on Etsy. Gifts like personalized jewelry, custom artwork, cozy style items, vintage pieces, and home decor to celebrate all of your favorite people and their specific kind of special. For original gifts that say, I get you, Etsy has it.
My dad works in B2B marketing. He came by my school for career day and said he was a big ROAS man. Then he told everyone how much he loved calculating his return on ad spend. My friends still laugh at me to this day.
Not everyone gets B2B, but with LinkedIn, you'll be able to reach people who do. Get a $100 credit on your next ad campaign. Go to linkedin.com/campaign to claim your credit. That's linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply. LinkedIn, the place to be, to be.
Yeah, I would say one of the reasons is the Democrats gave the impression that they were separate from the average person. That, for instance, if you're against the illegal immigration coming to New York, rather than give an explanation of why the Democrats take the stand they did or why they would somehow try to justify their stand, they basically said you're a racist or you're a bigot or anti-immigrant. And same when you're at the transgender issue. I mean, obviously, if something like that is in your own family, it could be a tragic psychological circumstance. But rather than try to discuss it, they passed it off. They ignored the issue. They figured only a few bigots were concerned about this issue, not knowing how that did affect the average person's concept of what a family unit should be or the difference between men and women, boys and girls. And then you would see, like in the Olympics, where a woman was knocked cold by a transgender person fighting as a woman. You see girls in volleyball getting hurt. This should have been, at the very least, discussed, not just ignored as some bigoted issue. So they gave the people, and again, the independent voters, the hardcore Republicans are going to vote for Trump no matter what. I say the independent, middle-income voters saw this as Democrats rejecting what they consider to be traditional values and standards and not even trying to offer an explanation.
It depends on who you ask a question like this, and there's not one answer to this as to why one lost and the other won. I think that, this is going to be studied in educational institutions in years to come because of the kind of election it was. But I'd like to just reflect on history. That we say history repeats itself, but does it? I think people do. We repeat ourselves. And when we look back to the 1920s, there was the Red Scare. There was the pandemic with the flu pandemic, right? There were the race riots that were happening because of the migration of African Americans to the North and concern about jobs and all of that. There was the 1924 Immigration Act, which was really towards Eastern Europeans who were coming into the country, but the ban on Asians. There was the tariffs that were placed, that created a situation overseas because the reaction to those tariffs were tariffs placed on exports. Are we, and of course this led up to the Great Depression, because this was 10 years of a conservative shift, a radical conservative shift that led to certain things that played out in the New Deal. Are we revisiting history 100 years later, gentlemen?
Well, I don't think that the Trump policy is going to lead to a depression. He wasn't over for 4 years, and we had a very strong economy until COVID came along. So I think that I think he's going to use tariffs primarily as a bargaining point, as leverage against countries to shake them up. For instance, with Mexico, the fact is they basically are doing very little to secure their border. Canada does a lot more than Mexico, but not as much as they used to. So I think the tariffs are being used for that purpose. We'll see. I think he's going to have some very solid people in his administration. The Treasury Secretary, who I'm not familiar with, I understand he's seems to be very well respected and regarded. So I don't see it going in that direction. And I think also, there was a blindness against legal immigration in the 1920s. Now we're talking about a situation where I think it's no exaggeration to say that New York City, certainly Manhattan, was in many ways overwhelmed by the number of illegal immigrants coming in, occupying hotels, being on the streets, and also taking some jobs away from people, but just creating a very unsettled attitude. New York, if any city's been welcome to immigrants, certainly in the last 100 years, it's been New York City. So
right.
Yeah.
And I think that we have so much built into our market systems globally, but it doesn't take away from the possibility that we can strain things by taking certain actions. Governor, your response?
So clearly, all 50 states' voting patterns moved to the right in this last election. All 50. In New York City, President Trump got 30% of the vote. Now, Kamala Harris got 67% of the vote. That was a clear margin. But what was noticed was that Trump got 25% more voters in 2024 than he got in 2020. So the public is sending government a message, and they're sending it everywhere. It isn't really about the 7 states that, could make the difference or, these other issues. It really was a mass exit from certain types of policies to more defensive policies. Why are you bringing immigrants into my neighborhood? Why are you raising my taxes? Why am I not getting the benefits that I would assume I would ordinarily get? And I think that it's going to be a challenge to try and still fight for some very necessary pieces of legislation or changes that could be made that would help more people have a good quality of life. But it's going to have to be done in a different way. And I think before one of you said, I'm not sure which one it was, said that there was a feeling among the Democrats that, we're superior. We won't have to worry about anything. If you say anything against what we say, we're going to call you these different names. That's going to have to go away right now.
Do you think
no one's listening?
Do you think there's a resentment against what was seen as elitism to have celebrities come forward and talk about inflation? You think that had an impact also? People are tired of that. They don't want to be lectured to by people who have made it and, telling them how troubling this economy is.
Well, Rabbi, when there were a number of well-known people that, we knew who got involved in politics, were close friends of the Kennedy family, were close friends of the Nixon family, and they were always out, campaigning for their friends, in a sense. What now was this attempt to just get people who are famous for whatever reason and get them to say things that half the time when they said them, you didn't even understand it because they hadn't researched the issue that well.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a real mistake. The celebrity is not going to win a campaign for you.
Right.
Congressman?
Okay.
Also, I think the Democrats showed themselves more open to being vulnerable to celebrities. I mean, the fact that George Clooney had a role in bringing Joe Biden down. I mean, he got so much coverage at that time because he wrote an op-ed basically saying that Biden should not run, even though he had already basically gotten the Democratic nomination. As a practical matter, the Democrats kept every other candidate off the ballot, giving Biden a free pass to the nomination. And then at the end, suddenly you have people behind the scenes, George Clooney being one, and also Nancy Pelosi and Barack Obama coming in. And in effect, I don't know exactly how it was done, but it was a pretty good political execution, getting Biden off and bringing in Kamala Harris, who had never been on the ballot at all in this year. And that I think left a wrong impression for people that was done.
Peter,
and
Peter, I have to say this. God forbid if President Trump had been severely injured in either one of those assassination attempts to the point that he realized that he couldn't run for president, I think the leadership in the Republican Party would have come together. They wouldn't have had a primary at their convention, which we were suggesting that us Democrats do.
Right.
They wished we'd had a primary at the convention so they could laugh at us, but we didn't do it. And we consolidated around the vice president. And there was a little period, particularly after the first debate with Trump, that it looked like the vice president had a very good chance to get elected. So I don't think it was that the Democrats didn't really demonstrate democracy. It was decisions that were made in an emergency by the leadership.
Yes, we're going to be back with more.
We've got to take a break.
Congressman Peter King and Governor David.
We're actually taking a break.
Wait a minute,
Rabbi, give us a break,
I'm just
Rabbi.
getting warmed up here.
You got a break here.
Jeez.
So stay tuned for more of the Rev and the Rabbi Sunday morning here on 77 WABC. We'll be right back.
Get even more savings this holiday season by becoming a Milo's Rewards member. Don't miss new member deals dropping every week, like $15 off a purchase of $50 or more on select Bounty, Charmin, and Puffs paper products. Plus, get free standard shipping with Silver Key status. Just one more way Lowe's is here to help you shop, save, and enjoy the holidays. Join for free today. Milo's Rewards program subject to terms and conditions. Visit Lowe's.com/terms for details. Subject to change. Exclusions and more terms apply. Visit Lowe's.com/shipping terms for details.
Reverend A.R. Bernard, Rabbi Joseph Potasnik, the Rev and the Rabbi. Talk Radio 77 WABC and the all-new WABCRadio.com.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Patterson.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
And we are speaking with former Congressman Peter King, who's known as America's Congressman, and former Governor David Patterson, known as America's Governor.
America's Governor. And gentlemen, I'd like to, while the conversation is at this level, ask you about the isolationist policies. Again, going back to the 1920s and, history or people repeating themselves, because when enacted in those days, it created a vacuum on the international stage in Europe and allowed for nationalism and totalitarian leaders to emerge. Should we be concerned about taking on that posture in relationship to the international landscape?
I think it depends on how Donald Trump implements isolationism. Now, during his 4 years as president, Putin made absolutely no inroads. He didn't go against Ukraine or Georgia. China did not move on Taiwan, and certainly Hezbollah and Iran made no moves against Israel. So it depends on how it's employed. For instance, he did bring about the Abraham Accords, which is every president has been trying to do something like that for decades. Now, I don't always agree with the way he talks about us not getting involved here or there. The fact is, when push came to shove, America did what it had to do over those 4 years. So I think a lot of what he does is bargaining, but I do believe America has a role to play. I think he realizes that. How it's implemented, we're going to see. Marco Rubio, as Secretary of State, is certainly not a traditionalist a isolationist in the 1920s sense. And also, you're going to have people like General Kellogg, who is a very strong, fighter of having a strong American defense. Also, going back to one thing, not to divert for a second, Kamala Harris, I can tell you, Republicans in tight races, when she became the nominee, they dropped off 2 or 3 points. She was actually a positive force that first week or two. And what happened after that, we can debate. But she was actually looked upon as a fresh face. And I know several Republicans in close races, their polling numbers took a hit when she became the candidate.
To your point there, do you think it's because the Republican Party basically had a strategy for Biden and not a Kamala Harris?
Oh, yeah. The point I was making is there was no reaction against her that I saw because she was a woman of color. Now, I'm not a person of color, and so I can't say for sure, but I did not detect it like in the campaigns I was involved in. I didn't see that being an issue on either side. But again, David may have a better read on that.
Yeah, Governor?
I just thought that when Barack Obama in 2008 ran, and at that point, no black man or woman had ever become president, that he had a tone that was far more encouraging and a wider sense of reaching out. I mean, I went to a Obama campaign meeting once, and they were talking about how to win North Dakota. I almost fell off my chair. I couldn't believe it. Yeah. But then I realized the reason they were talking about trying to win North Dakota is because they were trying to get people to see it's not just the black vote. It's not just the East Coast. It's not just the major states. We can win in other places. And they went out and did it. To me, I never heard the promise of America from her. I never heard her even appearing to be reaching out that much. Or sometimes she'd say something about being a woman and everybody would cheer. But I don't know if that brought her any votes.
I think one of the things the election taught us is no one will ever take any group for granted, right? Given the shifts that took place, unexpected, groups voting for Trump instead of the usual Democratic, putting the X there or whatever. That's going to change. That's going to change the thinking, how we go forward. Let me ask you this. I know that the Rev and I would pass a background check, or at least I would.
Hey, watch it.
So when you have people running for office, obviously there's got to be, that kind of background check. How far back do you think they should go?
Well, I think some cases are extreme. Like, for instance...
by the way, Congressman, off the air, you said 2 weeks, no more than
that. No, I mean, a Supreme Court judge nominee to go back to something that may or may not have happened in high school and didn't lead to anything anyway. To me, that was certainly going to, much too far. And anyone's record, if you're going to find somebody who was maybe drunk one night or someone who was having an affair sometime, to me, that is not really relevant unless it shows, let's say, up in their conduct in the last 5 or 10 years. Of course, it must be something serious, like a violent assault or murder or rape or something. But as far as just getting, acting crazy one night or 2 nights or something 10, 15 years ago, that should be put in very much in perspective as, what their overall record is. None of us, except for David Patterson, is perfect.
And now we knew. And now we know from perfection. Go ahead, Governor Patterson, please weigh in.
Well, I think the congressman really hit the nail on the head. What you want to distinguish is a period perhaps in someone's life where things weren't going well for them and they did a number of things that they now regret. In addition, they have to be strong enough to stand up and answer for what they did. And And remember, when I got elected, there were some issues about my past, and I stood up and addressed all of them. And then David Letterman did a skit saying, this guy admits to everything. And they had this actor come on and say all these different things he had done. But, you know, and this being a religious show, you know, the ability to atone for one's actions is really what ignites the whole idea of forgiveness. Mm-hmm. And that's what basically all the religions are about. It's about the sacrifice and also the forgiveness. And I know one particular elected official. I've known him a long time. I have never heard him say once that he did anything wrong. And I think it's worked very much against this individual. And so what I'm saying is it isn't just the background check. It's how the person reacts to it or any disclosures they want to make even before.
Curtis never said he did anything wrong.
He let the cat out the bag. He let the cat out the bag. But gentlemen, in 2022, there was a big article around the idea of what is called offense archaeology. Mm-hmm. And essentially it's digging up dirt on people, especially political candidates, unearthing old comments, you know, made by public figures. And the intent is to incite outrage, you know, or economic consequences against them. So it's this whole new, you know, category called offense archaeology. And they sell the information to political parties, to opposition, you know, and that's kind of where we are as a society.
Sometimes you hire someone who's vicious because you know if he's on the other side, he's going to go after you. And that's
exactly. So you take them away from the other side.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, it was started by a leftist. It started on the left.
There are just a few minutes left. A reporter called me and asked, "What do you think about this idea of going to let's say a Thanksgiving dinner, a Christmas Hanukkah event, but don't talk politics? Don't, because you're going to destroy the relationship." And I said it's interesting because when God created the world, He created the human family first. The laws came later. And maybe there's a hierarchy there and saying family matters most of all. And we always tell people, you know, you protect your family. I mean, is this the stage that we're going to accept as being the norm? That you can't talk politics anymore because it's going to sever or rupture? I know some grandparents who were denied access to their grandchildren for a few weeks because they had voted a certain way.
Yeah.
Well, roll out the...
Oh, go ahead.
Roll out the presses, gentlemen. I was the only person at my Thanksgiving dinner who voted for Harris. I was the only one. So I didn't start any fights because I knew I would get beat up. There were a lot of more people there. But seriously, there has to be a point where you can have and by the way, we did have political conversations at the dinner. But you just have to learn to respect other people's point of view, or sometimes to explain your point of view in a way that you think even someone who disagrees with you will understand it.
Congressman?
Yeah, I think in today's world, you should state your political view with the understanding, as you're saying, though, that others are probably going to disagree with you or may disagree with you. Not saying this is from the Talmud or from a papal encyclical that you have to believe this. Just say, listen, I understand how people feel. I really think we should do this. I think Trump is right on that. I think Biden was right on this. And try to find some way to describe it in a way that you're looking for a discussion, not argumentative like, I believe this. If you don't, you're a fool or a Nazi or a fascist or whatever. So it does get tough. I mean, fortunately, in my family, we sort of understand each other. But I've had some, let's say, right outside the immediate family circle. It's hard to talk. Yeah. And to me, it's dinner parties.
Isn't that what makes progress, gentlemen? The fact that we can have difference of opinion and challenge each other.
And still retain a relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I was telling the reporter, maybe you should offer a prayer just before we begin the meal. You know, that we are different. Let's remember we're also the same.
Yeah.
Like the ground rules for this, for the table.
Gentlemen, it's been a wonderful conversation with the two of you. Have we ever had this before where we had Peter King and Governor Patterson?
Well, because Patterson said he wouldn't appear with Peter King.
Because of things he said.
Yeah, because they don't like each other. This has all been a put on.
This is all after the background check. They made these decisions. Okay.
Let me tell you something. To be in the presence of these two it's inspiring. It's like there's hope for the future. We can get people to talk civilly to one another, seriously, and not in any way destroy the relationship. Shimon Peres was the prime minister of Israel years ago, and he said, "A friend is a friend, a disagreement is a disagreement, and learn to keep them separate from one another."
Let me just say, one of the reasons why David Patterson is such a good guy is he found out that he's part Irish.
He did him. He's part Jewish also, he told me.
It's 23andMe. Okay.
You know, when he meets a Jew, he says, I'm part Jewish. He meets an Irishman, I'm part Irish. That's why he endears himself to everyone.
I see.
You mean we're all mixed up?
Yeah,
huh?
yeah.
We're all mixed up.
Yeah, that's true.
Thank you so much. It's really been a
thank
privilege.
all of you. It was great.
All right.
Thank you.
This was inspiring for me. Now I can wake up.
Thank you, gentlemen. Have a great day.
Thank you.